You know that feeling when something doesn't quite belong? Like a single note off key in a symphony? That's what it felt like that night. It was subtle, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. But I was. It was the annual end-of-year gala in Boston, held under the great domed ceiling of the Museum of Science Planetarium. Claire's firm had a big presence this year, some kind of strategic rollout with one of the major media conglomerates. I'd been to these things before. Tuxedos, practiced handshakes, overpoured wine. The type of crowd that says, interesting, when they mean irrelevant, or good to see you, when they really mean, I forgot your name. Claire looked flawless, as she always did when it mattered. Navy silk dress, backless, understated jewelry, and that exact hair, twisted and pinned with precision. Not a strand out of place. She has this way of walking into a room like she's already read the script for every conversation about to happen. People gravitate to her. They trust her. She makes you feel like you're the only one in the room, even when you're standing in a crowd of 100. I used to admire that about her. That control. That air of quiet command. But that night, for the first time, it unnerved me. The event was winding down, drinks in hand, casual laughs echoing through the dome. Someone tapped a mic, and the lights dimmed. A curated reel began to play, a year in review, for the agency and its partners. It was a well-paced highlight reel. Clips of ad campaigns, behind-the-scenes footage from product shoots, interviews with grinning executives, a splash of motion graphics. Familiar stuff. I wasn't really watching closely at first, just the flicker of the dome catching on glasses and cufflinks. Then it happened. A 5-second clip, maybe less, flickered onto the dome above us, seamlessly embedded in the montage. It was Claire. No doubt about it. She was seated at a low-lit speakeasy bar, somewhere with exposed brick, amber lights, and that kind of velvet booth that doesn't belong in a corporate setting. She was smiling at someone mid-laugh. The camera panned slightly, and then I saw him. Tyler. From her firm. From the other coast. As she'd casually referred to his team in the past. She leaned in, kissed him lightly on the cheek. Their fingers were laced together on the table between them. Not held. Interlaced. The way couples do. It was not promotional. It wasn't a scene. There were no logos, no product sh*ts, no indications this was professional footage. Just two people in a private moment caught. And just like that, the reel continued. The next sh*t was a drone flyover of a convention center. Laughter resumed. Applause followed the ending montage a few minutes later. But all I could hear was silence. I turned to Claire. She didn't look shocked. She didn't blink. Her wine glass remained perfectly balanced in her hand. She turned casually to the VP from Denver seated across from us and said, with a smooth chuckle, "Oh God, that old thing? That was from a partner brand promo Tyler's team threw together last fall. I completely forgot that even existed. I thought they scrapped it." The VP smiled. "Ha, that must have been chaos." Claire nodded, taking a slow sip. "Total disaster. We ended up redoing everything. No idea how that footage snuck in, but hey, fun memories, I guess." There was a light murmur of acknowledgement from the table. Conversation shifted back to AI content compliance, or whatever the hell they were debating before. But I wasn't there anymore. I wasn't at the gala, not really. I was locked on that frame in my mind. Claire's smile. Not a smile of surprise, but one of recognition. Her ease. Her exact words. No idea how that footage snuck in. That phrase stuck out to me, like a splinter under skin. You don't forget a moment like that. You don't brush off an int asterisk made sh*t with someone like Tyler as a scrapped promo. Not unless you've already written your defense before the footage ever aired. The more I replayed it, the clearer it became. She wasn't surprised. She was prepared. And that realization hit me harder than anything else. I didn't say anything on the drive home. She didn't either, not much anyway. She talked about how great the turnout was, how the firm's partnership with the data firm from Chicago was finally starting to pay off, how Tyler was actually going to be relocating soon, but no one knows that yet. She looked over at me and smiled. "You okay? You've been quiet." I nodded, offered a half smile. Just tired. Long day. She reached over and placed her hand on my thigh, gently. We pulled it off, didn't we? Tonight was a win. I nodded again. Yeah, you pulled it off. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she drifted off beside me, like none of it had happened. I thought about the clip, about the lighting, about the way Tyler's hand lingered too long across hers. I kept waiting for the anger to come, or even sadness. But what I felt more than anything was that creeping dissonance. The sense that something vital had shifted between us and she wasn't going to acknowledge it. Not unless I made her. But I didn't, not yet. Because something deeper than doubt had begged *N to bloom in me. A strange, almost chilling clarity. If she could control a room full of investors and execs after a video like that, then I had no idea what else she was capable of controlling. It wasn't about the kiss. It was about the calm. It was about how quickly the room accepted her story. It was about how quickly I almost did. The next morning, she made pancakes. She kissed me on the cheek. She joked about her hangover and asked if I could take the recycling down. I did. I took it down, came back up, and watched her slip on a blazer over a black turtleneck, hair up, tote bag slung over her shoulder. She was humming to herself as she typed something on her phone. When she turned to leave, she gave me another kiss. See you tonight, love you. Love you, I replied automatically, but I was already watching the footage again in my head. Every frame, every beat, and underneath it all, something had started to assemble. Something I hadn't been ready to admit before. I didn't know the full picture yet, but now I was looking. I didn't become suspicious overnight. That's not how it works, at least not for me. It was more like something in my mind had been rewired after the gala. Like a quiet door had creaked open in the back of my brain, letting in cold air and fragments I had previously ignored. Things I had chalked up to chance or quirks or the general weirdness of adulthood suddenly began to rearrange themselves into something that looked like a pattern. Started, strangely, with clothes. Claire's wardrobe had always leaned minimal. Clean lines, neutral palettes, functional, elegant. But sometime after the Boston trip, it shifted. New coats, shoes that didn't belong to her usual brand favorites, a sudden fondness for designer streetwear, Mons, La Mer, that kind of thing. I complimented her one morning when she came out in a charcoal wrap coat I'd never seen. Client discount, she said casually, sipping coffee. Partner brand did a limited launch and offered staff pricing. I nodded. Of course. But something about the way she said it stuck with me, not the content, but the way she didn't offer details. Claire was usually generous with stories. She liked telling me the behind-the-scenes bits about her firm's weird campaigns or how a pitch almost fell apart in the 11th hour. But lately, her anecdotes were vague, watered down, like she was giving me just enough to keep me from asking more. Then came the travel. She'd always traveled for work. New York, L.A., Seattle. Cities that made sense for media, strategy, launch events. But in February, she had 2 separate trips to cities that didn't add up: Salt Lake City, then Richmond, barely a week apart. Quick site reviews, she'd said. Cross-client pitches. Not glamorous. And maybe that would have been enough. Maybe I would have let it go, except the timing was odd. They weren't back-to-back. They were split just wide enough that she had to fly home between them, spend a day at the office, then leave again. Costly. Inefficient. Not like her firm. I asked about it. She shrugged. Long story. I'll bore you with it later. But she never did. That was the first time I checked her calendar. We used to share one, not by mandate, just by habit. Early in our marriage, syncing made things easier. Appointments, reminders, weekend plans. But I realized sometime in March that I hadn't seen anything on hers in weeks. Not even recurring meetings. I opened the app, and the option was just gone. Like I'd been unsubscribed. I asked if she'd changed her settings, and she gave me a distracted, almost sheepish look. Oh yeah. Must have been when I updated the app. You know how glitchy it gets. I'll res-hair it. She never did. Around that same time, her phone behavior changed too. Subtly at first. Always face down on the counter. Notifications silenced even during the day. She started keeping it near her even during showers. something she never used to do. I joked about it once. Paranoid your phone will run away? She smiled and said, it's just easier to keep track of it. I'm always misplacing it. She was right, I suppose. But I noticed more messages marked as delivered, but never read. Then, eventually, not even delivered. Her read receipts vanished. I tested it once. Texted something small during a meeting. Thinking of you. It lingered for hours until she called later that night, already in the car, and said, hey, sorry, crazy day. I didn't see your message until just now. I could hear traffic, wind, the echo of Bluetooth. She was driving home, but I wasn't in the city. I had said earlier that I might be late, tied up at the office. Instead, I left early and drove out of state to help my brother prep for his engagement dinner. That was the test. I wanted to see how she responded when I claimed to be somewhere nearby. The timing didn't make sense. She shouldn't have been calling from the car that early unless something had startled her. I hadn't said anything specific, but she'd called anyway. The next day, I remembered something that unsettled me even more. Her gym membership. It had always been a local spot, boutique, functional, not far from home. But a couple months prior, she'd mentioned switching to a more tech-forward space near her office. I looked it up. Then I remembered. Tyler's office was a block away. It might have meant nothing. But then again, everything might have meant something. Geolocation was off on her phone. Not just low power mode, but disabled entirely. I noticed when trying to share a ride home from dinner one night. Weird, she said. Maybe I deleted that app. I'll check. But she didn't. A week later, same issue. Another excuse. I'll fix it later. She didn't. I tried not to become the person who snoops. But at some point, it becomes less about trust and more about survival. You start asking questions in coded ways, test phrases, emotional barometers. That's what I did. I invented a new colleague. Said he reminded me of Tyler, had the same posture and tone. You remember Tyler, right? I said it casually, while pouring wine on a Thursday night. That guy from your firm? She froze, not visibly, not enough for the untrained eye. But her glass paused half an inch above the counter. Her blink took a beat longer. Then she nodded too quickly. Yeah. Tall guy? Bit intense? I think he moved to Denver. A beat. Why do you bring him up? I said it was nothing. Just reminded me of the guy at work. Half an hour later, she called me from the parking lot of her office. I left my laptop, she said. Had to run back. Can you believe that? I was already 200 miles away. That's when I knew. Not from evidence. From instinct. From the way my stomach clenched before she even said it. From the way her voice sounded scripted, the timing too convenient. From the way I could suddenly rewind the last few months and hear the echo of cover stories layered like paint. The gym. The cities. The footage. The prepared response. I started compiling things in my head like a detective with no badge. Receipts for 2 drinks at a jazz bar we'd never visited. Her car seen idling by a downtown co-working space long after midnight. Notes jotted on her desk about Q4 summit, flights TBD, with no itinerary on the fridge. There was no explosion, no confrontation. Only quiet, sharp, surgical. And in that silence, a realization. I didn't know what I was looking at anymore. A career-driven woman with unusual hours? Or someone slipping between timelines, weaving lies through logistics? I stopped wearing my ring that week. Not as a statement, just because it felt like a costume now. Because it no longer pointed to something real. I used to think there was nothing worse than suspicion. That slow drip of doubt. Each new piece of circumstantial evidence adding weight until you can't sleep through the night. But I was wrong. There is something worse. It's confirmation. Seeing it, undeniable, unfiltered. And the part no one tells you? It doesn't feel like fire. It doesn't even feel like anger. It feels like gravity changing, like the floor shifting underneath you, and suddenly you're not sure which direction is down. It happened in Nashville, totally by accident. I was helping an old college friend, Eli, set up lighting rigs for a closed rooftop event. He owns a small production company and had a last-minute staff shortage for a private booking. Some post-launch party for a boutique investment app, funded by bored ex-financiers who wanted to make tech feel S**XY. Eli offered to comp me a weekend hotel if I gave him a few hours of setup help on Friday night. Figured, why not? I needed the distraction. The event was hosted at a rooftop venue above a renovated hotel downtown. Classic exposed brick, Edison bulbs, good jazz. I wasn't supposed to be upstairs after setup, but after we finished cabling, I ducked up to the bar to grab a water while Eli worked out a voltage issue with the DJ table. It was warm that night, humid in the way only southern spring can be, and the breeze off the rooftop almost felt staged. I stood near a column, sipping from a glass, just observing. It was one of those invite-only scenes. Smooth playlists, wristbands, slow dancing, laughter that didn't come from jokes but from money. That's when I saw her, Claire. Hair down, curled the way she rarely wore it, in a dress I'd never seen. Olive green satin with a slit up the side, effortless, intentional, and Tyler, standing at the bar beside her. They weren't trying to hide. That was the thing. They looked like any other couple there. No masks, no sudden separation when others passed. No performance of platonicity. He touched the small of her back. She leaned in. His hand moved to her waist, pulled her slightly into him. Her head tilted toward his neck. Not a kiss, not yet, but something closer. Something more familiar. And it wasn't that they touched. It was how. Fluid. Natural. Like they'd done it before. Like they'd been doing it. Like the connection between them wasn't adrenaline or thrill, but routine. That's when she looked up and saw me. Our eyes met across that soft-lit rooftop. Her face didn't shift. No panic. No alarm. Just recognition. Like she'd expected this moment at some point. Like she'd rehearsed it just in case. I didn't say a word. I didn't move. I just stared, long enough to register the details. The tilt of her hip against the bar, the arc of Tyler's arm, the gold glint of her necklace that I hadn't seen since last fall. The one I'd thought she lost. She blinked slowly. Her lips parted just slightly, maybe in preparation to say something. But I turned before she could. I walked toward the elevator, past waiters and soft laughter and a couple kissing by the railing. I didn't rush, didn't push through the crowd, didn't cause a scene. I just walked like a man who'd remembered something he left on the stove. I reached the parking lot and sat in the front seat of Eli's van, not turning the key. My hands rested on the wheel, and still I felt no rage, no heartbreak, just finality, the kind that doesn't beg for explanation, the kind that says, there it is, all of it. You were right. It wasn't a slip. It wasn't some lost-in-the-moment mistake. It was a second life. I didn't text her that night. I didn't even check my phone. I slept on the hotel couch, not the bed, and drove back the next morning before Claire would have landed from wherever she said she was. I don't even remember what the excuse was. Something about a strategy weekend in Charleston. Or maybe Charlotte. The names all blurred by then. When I got home, I found her suitcase by the entryway. Not in the closet. Not tucked neatly in the laundry room. Like she hadn't had time, or didn't care enough, to hide the arrival. Her heels were still inside. The black pair I bought her for her birthday. The ones she said she was saving for a future client dinner. She must have left in a rush. I opened the fridge and found a new bottle of white chilling. Still unopened. She always did that. Prepped her little reset rituals before coming back from trips. Clean kitchen. Stocked wine. Candles in the entryway. As if arriving back into comfort made it all feel earned. That night we had dinner together. Roasted salmon. Lemon asparagus. She lit a candle. Talked about the workshop. How exhausting the group breakouts were. How frustrating the off-site team lead had been. She mentioned someone named Deborah and an inside joke about granola bars. I nodded. Smiled once. She never asked about my weekend. Not once. I moved into the guest room a few nights later. Told her I was having trouble sleeping. She said nothing. No protest. No question. Just a nod and a quiet, "Whatever you need." I think she knew. Or maybe she didn't care. Either way, it was understood. The change didn't cause turbulence. No dramatic shouting or door slamming. We still cooked, still exchanged pleasantries, still forwarded the occasional meme. But the tone had shifted, like we were both playing out the end of something without announcing the curtain call. Sometimes she touched my shoulder when walking past me in the kitchen. Sometimes I let her. Sometimes I didn't. The ring came off the next morning. I left it on the nightstand. Not hidden. Not flaunted. She saw it later and didn't say a word. That week, I stopped asking where she was going. She stopped pretending she needed to tell me. The silence became ritual. We shared space but not warmth. Not anymore. It wasn't icy exactly. Just hollow. Like a house after furniture's been moved out. Quiet, echoey, technically intact, but no longer home. And yet, she didn't stop. Whatever she and Tyler had, it continued. I knew it. I could sense it, not from receipts or sightings, but in the way she looked at her phone now, like it was a portal to the place she actually wanted to be. I caught her smiling at it once. Not a grin. A soft smile. The kind people make when they're reading something meant just for them. That did more damage than anything else. Because it wasn't lust. It was affection. And there's no undoing that. Not with time. Not with therapy. Not even with forgiveness. There was no confrontation. No midnight yelling. No suitcase hurled down the stairs. No demand for explanations. The affair didn't end in fire. It calcified into silence. After Nashville, I didn't tell Claire I saw her. I didn't need to. Whatever mask we were both wearing before had cracked. We were no longer speaking the language of partnership, only the dialect of performance. Every interaction after that was a scene we played, a script we never rewrote. The strangest part? On the surface, things looked fine. Dinner was still on the table most nights. She still asked how my day was. We still split the grocery list. The thermostat war even continued. She liked the apartment cool. I liked it warm, so we negotiated in degrees. But the warmth that once made these routines feel like home was gone. Like a fireplace still intact but long since cold. I moved into the guest room officially. Didn't say it out loud. Just started sleeping there full time. The first night I brought a pillow, thinking I might just crash there for an hour. Then I brought the comforter. Then a lamp. Then a charger. Slowly, the space became mine. She noticed. She never commented. Eventually, we stopped making weekend plans. The shared calendar stayed blank. Her calendar was private now, and mine, well, I stopped adding things. I didn't want to give her insight into where I was. I didn't want to feed the illusion that she needed to know. We were two actors still living in a fully dressed set, delivering lines to each other over the empty space between us. When people ask what betrayal does to a marriage, they expect tales of chaos. Explosive arguments, packed bags, slammed doors. But I've learned something different. Betrayal is often quiet. It doesn't blow up the house. It removes the oxygen. And suddenly you realize you've been holding your breath for weeks, maybe months. We had a rhythm, Claire and I. Wake. Coffee. Muted conversation over NPR. Work. Separate desks. Occasional texts. Want anything from Trader Joe's? Evening. Dinner. Dishes. Then she'd drift into the bedroom, and I'd retreat to the guest room, where I kept my laptop, a stack of books I pretended to read, and headphones to drown out the space. She still cooked like nothing had changed. That part one didn't understand. Claire was never a passionate cook, but she cared about presentation. Even now, when we barely spoke, she plated dinners with fresh parsley. She still bought the wine I liked. Still ordered that rosemary bread from the bakery across town. Still said, "Dinner's ready," like it mattered. I ate in silence. She rarely asked questions anymore. If I had a meeting late or came home an hour after work, she didn't mention it. She never asked where I was, who I saw, what I did. And I didn't ask her either. We were housemates now. Polite, functional, emotionally detached. The strange part is that it didn't feel dramatic. It felt muted, like someone had turned down the color saturation of our lives. One night, a week after I saw her with Tyler, I woke around 2 a.m. I don't know what triggered it. but I got up and walked into the living room. She was there, curled up on the couch with her laptop open and headphones in, watching something. Her face was lit by the screen, emotionless. I stood there for a while just outside her line of vision. I could have said something. I didn't. I went back to bed. She never mentioned seeing me. I doubt she noticed. It wasn't long after that I stopped wearing my ring altogether. First, I left it on the nightstand, then in the drawer. Then I moved it to the closet in a box I hadn't opened since my brother's wedding. She noticed it was impossible not to, but she never said anything, and that somehow hurt more than if she had. Because silence isn't neutral. It's a decision. It's a line drawn in chalk you both agree not to cross. The silence became a kind of language. When I walked into the kitchen and she was already there, I'd take the mug closest to me even if it wasn't my usual. She wouldn't offer to switch. If I forgot to start the dishwasher, she wouldn't remind me. If she left her coat on my chair, I'd hang it up without a word. If the doorbell rang and we were both home, we'd both wait to see if the other would answer. We were testing each other in the smallest of ways, looking for signs, looking for cracks, not to rebuild anything, just to confirm the damage. And beneath that quiet, I began to understand how routine becomes ritual, and ritual becomes denial. Some evenings, I'd walk to the park 3 blocks away just to clear my head. Sit on the bench by the dog run even though we never had a dog. I'd watch people. Couples jogging together, kids on bikes, someone blasting music from a Bluetooth speaker while a toddler danced offbeat. Life loud and full and chaotic. Then I'd go home to the hush of our apartment. Claire started taking more calls on the balcony. She claimed it was better for reception. But I could hear her voice sometimes, soft, and asterisk mate. I never heard the other side, but I didn't need to. I knew the cadence of affection in her tone. I used to be on the receiving end of it. Other times, she'd go for late-night walks. Claimed it helped her sleep. I stopped asking what routes she took. The geolocation was still off. I hadn't seen her phone unlocked in months. Once, just once, I opened her laptop while she was out. I didn't know what I was looking for. A message, a search, a folder mislabeled. But the wallpaper was new. A photo of a city skyline at night. Not our city. Not Boston. Not anywhere I recognized. Closed it. Didn't go any further. Because that's what it had become. An unspoken agreement not to expose the truth, even when it sat within reach. I think we were both scared, though not in the way people usually are. We weren't afraid of losing each other. We were afraid of confirming just how far we'd already gone. The dinners continued. The fridge stayed stocked. The holidays approached, and she even mentioned Thanksgiving plans once. Some vague idea about flying to see her sister. She didn't ask if I wanted to come. I didn't say I wouldn't. We just left it there. One evening, I came home and saw her sitting on the couch, scrolling through photos on her phone. She didn't hide the screen, but I caught a glimpse, Tyler, smiling in a group *T. Casual. Like it was nothing. She locked the phone, looked up at me. "Hey," she said, voice light. "Dinner's in 10. I nodded, walked past her, and in my head, I realized that I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her. The version of her that used to pull me out of myself on bad days. The version who'd fall asleep with her head on my chest and her foot always under the blanket no matter the temperature. The version who'd send me bad puns in the middle of meetings because she knew they made me groan. That person was gone. Replaced by this beautifully composed stranger who wore my wife's face. And I let it happen, because to call it out would be to confront the truth. That whatever this was, it had ended already. We were just waiting for one of us to say it out loud. The thing about secrets is they always think they're safe. They live in tucked-away folders, mislabeled cloud drives, burner apps, second phones. But even the best-kept lies forget one thing: technology never forgets. Not entirely. The discovery didn't come from me. Came from Ryan. Yes, that Ryan, Claire's ex-fiancé. The one she rarely talked about except when referencing her 20s like they were a separate life. They'd been together for 4 years. She left him 3 months before their wedding, claiming she had outgrown the relationship. "He was a good man," she once said, "just not the right one. He hadn't reached out to us once in all the years since." So when a courier showed up one Tuesday morning with a padded envelope, I didn't know what to think. It was addressed to Claire. No return address. No note. She wasn't home. I didn't mean to open it, but when I picked it up, it slipped, just enough for the side seam to peel open. Inside was an iPad, older generation, screen scratched, battery nearly dead. There was a sticky note on the case, half-torn but legible. "Didn't realize this was still linked. Figured you'd want it back before anyone else did." That's what pulled me in. Before anyone else did. I powered it on and plugged it in. The wallpaper was the same default ocean image. I tapped through a few apps, most empty or deleted, but then I saw it. Photos. 2000 plus items. Recently synced. Took my brain a few seconds to register it. Somehow, Claire's iCloud was still linked to Ryan's old iPad, probably forgotten in the blur of ending things. Maybe they thought they'd unpaired it. But the sync was still live. And when I tapped into the gallery, what I saw made my stomach knot instantly. The Boston clip. Not the cropped, edited version that had flashed at the gala. The full version. 15 seconds, not 5. Tyler and Claire. Laughing. Her hand on his chest. His lips grazing her ear. Then her neck. They weren't in a crowded bar. They were alone in a curtained booth. The camera wasn't professional. It was taken on a phone, his probably. She looked happy. Not high on adrenaline happy. Not tipsy or playing around. Happy like this was home. My breath caught as I watched it a second time, then a third. This wasn't a one-off. This was a moment between people who felt safe with each other. There was more. Photos. Dozens of them. Claire and Tyler in different cities. Selfies in what looked like a downtown Salt Lake hotel room. A blurred photo of their room service tray with 2 plates, matching mugs, her bare foot visible in the foreground. Another from Richmond. Another from Asheville. They never smiled directly at the camera. Most were candid, casual. * mate in a way that screamed familiarity. Not passion. Not scandal. Just life. Like they were living something together. I dug deeper. Found voice memos. One was recorded while she was walking outside, wind muffling part of the audio. But I made out enough. "He doesn't suspect anything. I just need to manage the next 3 weeks until the Denver summit. That's our window. After that, we'll need to recalibrate." The Charlotte excuse still holds. So far. Another memo. Quieter. "He started asking about the gym. I think I deflected okay, but I'm gonna start splitting the location tags. Probably best to disable them altogether." And then another. "Ty says I'm overthinking, but I still think the clip from Boston could surface. If it does, I've got the promo shoot story ready. I can pivot fast, but it has to be once, not multiple times." That broke something in me. She knew. She knew the footage existed. She prepared for it. Not like someone covering up a regret. Like someone managing logistics. There was a notes folder too. A long, scattered document, almost like a stream of consciousness planner. It included odd phrases like, window, Tuesday 2 to 5, and cleansing period October 14th to October 28th, and shared archive, rename after Q3. I scrolled faster, feeling the disorientation swell. Then, near the bottom, a list of passwords, labeled folders, encrypted apps, vaults, and one, simply named Under. That folder cracked open a series of subfolders in a secure Drive app, also still linked to the device. Inside, hundreds of entries, receipts, flight confirmations, emails forwarded from personal to burner addresses, even hotel booking records, not in Claire's name, but under business aliases, third-party staff names. Everything layered. She'd created an architecture, a structure, an entire infrastructure designed to maintain a second life. There were even scheduling notes, some handwritten, some typed, detailing how to block off time without triggering suspicion. Workshop overlap, client dinners, live briefs, advisory calls. Every entry had an alibi next to it, color-coded. There was no more gray area. No room for justification. This wasn't carelessness. This wasn't someone spiraling or acting out of desperation. This was calculated, clean, repeated. I sat back in the chair, the iPad screen still glowing in my lap. My hands were cold. The phrase that kept echoing in my head wasn't about the cheating itself. It was this: she made contingency plans. She didn't just lie. She accounted for the possibility of getting caught. And she was ready. If I hadn't opened that envelope, if Ryan hadn't sent it, none of this would have surfaced. She would have continued, maybe even left on her own timeline. Maybe I'd be blindsided a year later, handed some speech about growth or alignment or different phases of life. But this wasn't a phase. It was a project. And I was collateral. I copied the archive to my laptop. I didn't touch her devices. I didn't confront her. Not yet. That night, when she came home, I was at the kitchen counter scrolling my phone. Casual. She kissed my cheek, opened the fridge, said, "You ate already?" "Yeah," I replied. "Everything okay?" I nodded. "Just tired." She smiled. "Me too." She walked into the bedroom, humming to herself. I stared at the glass of water in front of me, the light from the fridge still flickering behind her. And I thought, I don't even know this person anymore. Not even a little. In the archive was a clinic bill prenatal screening. The visit dated to her workshop in Charlotte. A booking for a double room. 2 breakfasts. It hit like a final, cold verdict. This wasn't a mistake, wasn't weakness. It was a life she built deliberately, layered in lies, supported by systems. A child was possible. A future without me had already begged *N to take shape. And I was never meant to know. I left the divorce papers on the kitchen table. No theatrics. No fight. Her signature appeared the next day, clean, centered, like a business form. I packed light, drove north to my brother's cabin in Vermont. The silence felt earned. As the miles passed, something heavy lifted. Not relief, not yet, but the early edge of freedom. I wasn't mourning anymore. I was rebuilding slowly, deliberately, and finally for myself.